Welcome to the Outer Fringe.
I think it's funny that, like, you know, R. Kelly's going through all this stuff, and I still really love the remix to Ignition. You know, just like, it's the remix to Ignition, hot and fresh out the kitchen, mama rolling that body, got it. You know, it's just, can you separate the art from the artist? I've heard a lot lately, and it's kind of tough. It's been on my mind. You know, do I just completely cut somebody off for I mean, really terrible behavior and never listen to that song again?
I can't even think of anything R. Kelly sings. Wait, he did the one, there ain't nothing wrong with a little bump and grind.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that's the only R. Kelly song I know. So you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about right now.
No, it was just a random intro because I was watching, God, what was I watching on Netflix? I watched too much on Netflix, really, you know, because it's that choice. You have too much choice now. It's like, I've seen the few shows that I really wanted to. I binged the third season of Stranger Things on 4th of July instead of going out and being patriotic, because that's the kind of like homie nerd that I've become. But you just, you see all these little programs, and one of them was talking about, it was Aziz Ansari.
I like him.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Yeah,
and
it's like a puppy dog.
He talked about it because he had this this incident where, like, girl said, and I don't know all the details, but like, a girl ended up saying no, and then he was like, come on baby, and then they ended up having sex, and so it became a whole thing. But this is like his Comedy Central like special after that. So he touched on a lot of like gender issues, which I always love gender issues. Like, they're coming more and more to the forefront now, and I'm becoming well more aware than I was, you know, as a kid growing up in the 80s.
Are you woke, Brian?
No.
Are you woke?
No. I don't think that term is encompassing enough, and we almost use it so much it's becoming, it's the woke joke, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to be more, you know. But what was it that I was saying to Joseph? We got Joseph coming on in another week. He's going to be just another great, wonderful local Boise musician. So excited
about him. Oh my God.
And I'm glad you got to meet him and enjoy him. What we were talking about, and I said, you know, there's that point when, you know, you don't want to sexualize a girl because she's showing off a little skin, right? That's not maybe for you. You know, maybe she's just dressing that way for her. You don't want to. And then, but the turnaround is, if my shirt doesn't completely cover up my hairy butt crack when I sit down, and somebody's like, oh, gross, and I'm like, whatever, I'm an old man, but it still makes me feel bad. You're looking at my body and you're sexualizing it, and even worse, you're not doing it in a positive way. You're like, no, you're not just saying like, oh, that's a human over there, and he just happens to have a shirt that isn't long enough today. You're saying like, I would never screw that, and I need to tell him verbally. Like, there's a male counterpart. So there's objectifying
going on in both directions. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Like, I never feel that. Like, when I go out, like, I'll wear, like, I feel so androgynous with my body because I don't have any curves or anything really. So I just feel like sometimes kind of like a boy dressed in girl's clothes. Does that sound weird?
I mean, no, I've done it.
Yeah, and probably because I always feel like I'm one of the dudes. Like, when I'm hanging out with guys, I can get down and low with the dirty talk or dirty shit, and like I don't have like the filter that most girls have, and I don't get like offended by a lot of things that girls get offended by. So I never feel like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I feel like some of the people too that are wearing things that are like more scantily clad are almost looking for attention, and then when they get it, they're like, oh, how dare you objectify me?
Well, yeah, and that's like some of those things that we got to think about.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault that I have big boobs. I can't believe you look at them. I mean, we're all looking at everybody. Like, that's what we're visual people. We're a visual species of sorts. We're like navigating through our eyes, and I think it's normal to look at someone, and then we have, you know, just kind of these like ingrained ways of, you know, what's attractive and what's not attractive, and then I don't know. It's just kind of a weird topic. It's a weird topic because there's so many different angles with that.
You don't go to Italy and look at, one of the Davids, right? This beautiful statue and not recognize that he's naked. You're like, okay, even that is artwork. And then visually, I'm not like, I wonder what David's thinking.
Have you always noticed the Peters are real small too? But the balls are big.
Do you want to know why?
Okay, I know. You tell me. Like, I want to hear your.
You want to go first?
Version. No, you go.
Okay, so what I was told about this was that the smaller penis was like recognized as a sign of intelligence back then, and that dudes with big floppy dicks were dumber. Right? And like, I have to hold that to be true because I am one smart cookie.
Oh, okay.
What was your thought?
I've heard that too. Like it's like all about the ball size. Like you have big balls, you're like more powerful, but like the wieners were like just covering up the balls, but it was all about balls.
I'm built like a howitzer, all wheels, no cannon.
So if you have a big balls, that's like the sign of like
that's masculinity and virility.
Yeah. So what guys should be doing is getting ball pumpers, not penis pumpers, to make their balls bigger.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I had a friend who, not a friend, I mean, an acquaintance, like, my roommate was seeing him for a long time. And one of his balls grew up like bigger than a coconut, right? It was cancer. He survived it, but like he let it go for so long. Like he didn't want to deal with it, right? So like he would wear these size like 56 pants and then like belt them down really, and like you kind of wouldn't notice, but not when I knew, because my roommate's, like with him, and I know, like you can't help but notice, like, is that a freaking coconut down there? What's going on, man?
Yeah.
So he should have had every woman, is what you're saying.
Well, back in like, I don't know,
the Medici times,
he might have been like, oh, but then they'd be like, well, why is only one big? Is it? I don't know. Maybe it's interesting too. That's an interesting thing when people have like something really wrong going on with them and they don't go to the doctor out of fear.
Oh yeah. I
have heard stories of like people that are like basically their bodies are like decomposing under their clothes, but they won't go to the doctor because it's like the reality. Like, oh, as long as I don't know what's going on, then I can just kind of like stay in this place of like not knowing instead of actually having to deal with the reality of my situation. So that's what was coming into my head when you were talking about the big ball.
Oh yeah, sure. Like my car, if the check engine light goes on, I'm like, what is it? We got to go figure it out. But like, my head's going crazy and I won't meditate for like a year or something, Yeah. I'll just like give myself time to process what I need to process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're all just like one pin drop away from completely losing our shit. Like I was talking to one of my clients yesterday and we were talking about, bankruptcy. Like people have filed for bankruptcy and they wanted, how they wanted to change like the bankruptcy laws, like because they thought the people that were filing for bankruptcy were just going out and buying all these lavish sports cars and then filing for bankruptcy. Yeah, basically. But when they did a study to find out like who was like the primary part of society that is filing for bankruptcy, it's people that are middle class who are just staying afloat. They have the house, they're making all their payments every month, and then one thing happens, like one emergency trip to the doctor, one crazy thing happens, or like they break their arm and can't go to work, and all of a sudden they can't pay their bills, and it's just like boom, and then all of a sudden they'll lose everything.
Because that's the hand-to-mouth society that we're getting pushed into, with like a living wage that's really not increased while inflation's severely increased. It's saying like, okay, instead of saving enough that you can put a down payment on a house, it's that we're going to pay you just enough that you can like put a little gas in your car, get groceries, pay your like ever increasing rent. And like that's pretty much like what we're riding the edge of, or we're being forced to ride the edge of as like normal working people.
Yeah, and it's like we're all just kind of like hanging on by a thread, and like in this like basic, like we're just juggling this life that doesn't even, like, it's just hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up with like what's going on. And I don't know. Sometimes when I'm going into work every day and I'm like, okay, things are going really good. Like I have a lot of clients, like, money's coming in, and I'll get like a little complacent and comfortable. And then I start spending more. And then all of a sudden it'll like, I'm like, wait, what happened? Like I have no money in my account. Like I'm the worst with finances. And I don't know if that's just like, it's funny because my dad was an accountant. He taught me how to like balance my checkbook and all that stuff. But I just kind of live in this, like, I just don't want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Like I don't want to deal with reality like half the time. Like I want to just pretend that I'm just going to be fine no matter what, or like, and then something happens. I just live in this like denial process, and I don't know. I'm all off today. It's the full moon. It's coming.
Mercury's in retrograde.
And Mercury's in retrograde.
Yeah.
We got some fun vibrations going on right now.
It would be really cool if you could make a living with your painting, and your creative side. And so, like,
that's the goal. I mean, at least part. Like, I don't like to have all my eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. Like I have this thing where it's like if you have one thing you're focused on too much and you don't have other things to like fall back on, and it has to be things you're passionate about. So it's like, I love what I do for a living, but then I also need to nurture my passions because at some point I may need to use that as like a source of income, because you never know when people are going to stop spending money on certain things. And like for me, I rely on that. Like I rely on people to get kind of frivolous like beauty services that if like our economy crashed, like nobody's going to come in and get their eyebrows tattooed on. And I have to like, I'm always got that in the back of my head. I'm like, what else can I do? Mm-hmm. I have to have other skills, but bottom line is like, I just can't push myself to like do something that I don't feel good about. God
forbid 70s porn bush comes back.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely made a comeback. It's still back. But
I don't know. I guess I haven't been surveying.
They were selling merkins for like girls that like were sad because they lasered off all their hair and then they felt. I mean, there's yeah. I mean, there's beauty trends that come and go, but like yeah, it's one of those things too where like I work in such a specific category of like. It's all creative. Like everything that I'm good at or I excel at is all creative.
And it should be more creative stuff, And
yeah.
Like CEOs now saying like, oh, well, let's just pad our pockets even if we do, a bad job in our corporate society. That's what happens, right? But what they aren't doing is nurturing the real U.S. economy. I mean, we make the best movies. We make music that goes around the world. We make video games that go around the world. We make computer programs even as a creative thing. Like we make computer programs, Microsoft. Just Microsoft or Google or I know Facebook's got a lot of like privacy stuff going on right now and always has been, but like still we're at the forefront of these really creative societies. And so like if you could, like build on your creative side and not just paint or get super into a certain style of painting and do that would be such a boon to literally the economy of the country,
Yeah.
Like put this out there, but that's not where we're at.
Yeah, everything's, and it's in, like we were talking with Joseph this morning a little bit, and we were talking about like there's so many people doing the same thing now. And now with social media, it's so easy to be like, everybody's an artist, everybody's a musician, everybody kind of does this thing, but like, there's so much exposure. Like you can put your stuff out there and you're so connected that it's almost kind of like flooded, and then you kind of have to weed out the ones that are like really doing it because they want to be doing it and because they're doing it from their heart, or the people that are just trying to kind of like pose against, I don't know. Does that make any sense? You know
what it just made me think? It was like, okay, Instagram. I'm a dude, right? And I've totally like scrolled Instagram, but it's always now girls who are like, oh man, I'm an Instagram influencer. I've got like 1,000 likes, but it's just a flood. There's maybe 10,000, 100,000 girls, and they're all beautiful, right? But there's still no differentiation. We used to have like just a few really beautiful movie actresses. Mm-hmm. And they were known, right? Like your dad or your granddad would know like all these different. Of course, Marilyn Monroe was one, but now like this trend towards just beauty. How can I take the best
influencers?
Right. How can I take the best, selfie? Right?
Yeah.
Or the best like pose next to a sunset. it waters down everything. You're like, but now it's like, well, what's special? You're beautiful, but is there anything special?
Yeah.
You know,
it's almost like they're kind of influencing like this superficial reality. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. I mean, like, everybody can post a story on Instagram or Facebook or whatever and make their lives look really good. You know, like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just, went on this amazing trip to Italy. What you don't see is like, oh, I got stuck in airport security for 15 hours. Like, I ended up losing my bags. Like, I ended up like...
I missed my international flight.
Yeah, I ate at McDonald's this afternoon. It was like so amazing, and I'm just really soaking up the culture. It's like... There's so many like things that you don't see that are reality.
Yeah.
And gosh, that's the thing, that's one of the things about, really what I wanted to start with this forum, with this podcast, is that sometimes I feel like, like I just this kind of feeling of loneliness, like even, I mean, like I always feel kind of this loneliness, like when I'm by myself, like this lack of connection. But even sometimes when I'm with people, like so many people are kind of putting on this front, or it's just, I feel like sometimes there's like this barrier up between us, where it's like really getting deep and like really getting connected. And I don't know what it is, if it's like fear, or if people are so like used to kind of hiding behind a screen, that they're used to kind of showing one side of themselves, that's how they start going out into society. But then when I start like really getting to know people and kind of breaking down those walls, it's like, and having real conversations, it's like, that's when I start to feel like, oh, this loneliness that I feel inside is just basically my own illusion of like what's going on, and it's really not the reality. Does that make any sense?
I think that you're totally correct in that we all have this wall, this front, this mask, and we're supposed to look a certain way, act a certain way, and it's because of like trust. We're taught not to trust people with our true selves, and that probably happens sometimes when we're about 12 and we start like getting called weird. It's like you can't hang out and read comic books, play D&D. You can't be into science or math anymore because that's not what a girl does.
Then you have the label. You get the label of being a nerd.
Right, and so you have to start thinking about other things and make people like you because they won't like the real you. And so we build up this whole front. And one of the things I really want to come out of this podcast is I know there's so many other channels of communication that I'm not even aware of, and other people who are trying to see what humanity and what real life can actually be when we break out of these boxes, and that we don't A, have to be so afraid, and B, that we're not so alone with that.
Right.
And I hope that some of our listeners can maybe get a sense of like, okay, we belong from this. And if it's not from our voice, then from another voice, but we're just another voice that can kind of carry, hey, somebody went outside the norm in this direction, and here's what they learned, and here's how they grew. And, you and I went outside the norm in our own directions. And so, if we can start sharing this, it can at least all come together. And I think Rob has just showed up. We've got Rob coming into the studio.
Yeah, pretty excited.
Hey there, Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Hi. Who's right around there?
Come sit down, take a headset.
How you guys doing?
Good.
We're doing good.
It's good times. Good times.
Excited to chat.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen the movie Lion?
Lion?
Yeah, so it's like this guy who, he ends up getting separated from his family. It's in India. He gets separated from his family, and he goes through Google Earth. He ends up relocating where he got lost and finding where his family is. It's a true story.
Okay.
And then when he goes home to find his mom and his brother, he finds out I think he finds out his brother died. And then he also ends up finding his mom. But when he goes into the village where his mom's living, he's like, everybody knows her, and everybody goes to get her and bring her out to see him, and the whole community is celebrating that the son has returned. Mm-hmm. And it's this beautiful gathering and celebration. That shit wouldn't happen in the U.S. There'd There'd be no way. You might hear it on the news.
Are we allowed to cuss?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we were talking about ball sacks and small penises on statues.
So I am.
We're pretty open.
You think? Are you gonna finish that story though?
Which they've had a lot of interesting stories today.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll get there.
We were having rambles of rambleness.
rambles are good.
Yeah.
Rambles,
maybe
okay.
So I'm going out for now.
Hey, Sarah and Brian here, and we got Rob in the studio. Super excited to have you here, Rob.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Rob is, how did we meet?
Through mutual friends.
We met through mutual friends, and right away I got this sense from Rob that he was just like a human teddy bear, like one of the nicest guys, one of the friendliest guys, and just like had this warm heart.
Does that mean not attractive? I've heard teddy bear. It's like, oh, you're just a friend. I want to keep you as just a friend.
I hit the friend zone real fucking fast there.
Calm down.
No, I'm putting it out because like I've heard
I think
that.
what
No,
I'm
it's
getting
fine.
to is just like this really warm, positive energy, just open,
Yeah.
positive. And then when I found out you were a musician, I was like, oh, that makes total sense, because I just feel like people who are musicians tend to have like so much more of that. I don't know, just like a deeper soul. You want to weigh in on that, Brian?
I mean, I was trying to get Rob to tell me about like the deep, dark nature that, you know, his music and ability to play came from, because I don't have as much music. I did like 6 years of trumpet and I still can barely play a couple of notes.
Right.
You know, I was like the leader of the end of the trumpet line in the band. And, but I have talked to a couple of musicians, and it always seemed like there was this period where, you know, they just were being antisocial for whatever reason, forced into it or by choice, usually forced into it. And so they'd sit in, that's what I just said, in the basement.
Yeah.
And it would be a couple hours, you know, on whichever instrument every night, the drums, the guitar, you know, whichever. And so that musicians end up getting all this love and admiration for their work,
Right.
but then they're not understood as actual people and humans, because there was still that block there.
Right.
So I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I hear that story a lot, and
Yeah, I think you're on target with that.
well, I want to hear. I mean, what was your journey with that? Because you're totally not blocked off now.
No. Well, I mean, for me, it was, I always had a love for music. You know, I was in choir in 5th and 6th grade, in 7th, 8th grade as well. And then took piano for a year. And Mr. Campbell, tall, skinny black dude, was my teacher. And he was such a badass. He was amazing, actually. And, you know, and that piano with him forced me to want to become accomplished, you know, as a musician, because he was that teacher that never gave an A, you know? And so it became this freaking challenge in me to be the first one to get an A from him. And it took a year and a half, but I did it. And then from there, you know, when high school hit, and, you know, I'm like, all my friends that were playing in bands were getting all these chicks. They were partying, having a good time. I'm like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I like this life.
Yeah, I could do that. And so I started playing guitar because my brother bought one, and it just sat in the room. And I was staring at it all the time. And, you know, him being the older brother, if I touched it, I knew he was going to kick my ass. So I grabbed it anyways and played it. And then my best friend, Robert, he got a drum set, and it was like, dude, let's start a band. So we did. And that's how, you know, we both sucked. Neither one of us knew what we were doing, but we didn't care.
Yeah.
You know, and then after a couple of years, we actually started getting decent. And then when I was 18, a friend of mine called and said, hey, man, he goes, it was on a Monday night. He calls me up and he goes, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. Why? Do you need a guitar player? And the guy was probably the best guitar player in school, you know, at school at the time. And he laughed at me and said, no, I need a bass player. I got a gig Friday. And I'm like, I've never touched a bass, dude. And he goes, exactly. He goes, get over here. And so I went over to his house, and that Friday we did the show, and I kept playing bass since. So that's how I got started playing bass as a musician, and realized I wasn't a guitar player at that time.
So as a teenager, like Because I feel like a lot of people kind of discover their love of music during the teen years. And what an angsty, like, kind of painful, awkward time to go through. And then you find this thing. And I love that you said that. I was like, oh, they're getting chicks. Like, I'm cool. I'm playing music. I'm like you know, you're kind of like the wannabe rock star in your town. And, you know, it's kind of, but then it's also like this outlet for like, just kind of that repressed, like, just anger and frustration. And, you know, I mean, it's like you get addicted to it almost, in a sense, I'm sure.
Yeah, you do, especially when you get on stage and you can release all that anger and people are digging it. You know, they're like into your shit and you're like, what? and at first it's a little awkward, you know, because you're like not expecting them to enjoy what you're doing, and then when you see them get into it, you get into it more, and it's just this transfer of energy back and forth, you know, and it's so amazing. You know, you can't really explain the feeling. Anyone who's been on stage and had people, you know, going nuts over their own music, you know, it's pretty incredible, you know.
So you almost kind of like, it goes beyond the love of the music, but then you almost kind of have this love of like the attention you're getting, and
for a while, for a while, that
and then
happens,
it gets old, I bet. And then after a while, you're like, oh, this isn't real. Or
well, you want people to love you for who you are.
Exactly.
You know,
that's it.
You know, and that's the bottom line. And you always feel like, you know, like I can remember when I was hanging out with rock stars, and I wasn't famous by any means, but the people I was hanging out with were. And it, you know, it was always interesting to watch how they interacted with the public, you know, because you could tell that for them it was just normal. You know, to have like a mob of people hitting on them all the time. And for me, I was just like, damn, man, this is, you know, and then the only reason why they were asking me for my autograph is because of who I was with. Right. You know, it had nothing to do with me.
Like, I suppose we should ask this guy so he doesn't feel bad.
Yeah. That's what it was. It was a pity sage. You know, pity. Right, thanks. You know, but yeah. So I mean, so the whole thing of the attention is you always want people to feel like they love you for who you are and what you present to them and what you represent. You know, and you see that with a lot of artists. You know, because they have some serious fans, but you know, it's just. Can be weird.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it can be totally weird.
Well, we were just talking about Sarah's painting, but like, would it be weird if people, like, if you became, you know, famous overnight and people just only knew you as this amazing painter, and then it was hard to get to know anyone on a level that was real?
Yeah, it would feel more like I was a product. Like I was thinking about that. It's like if achieving fame, I think everybody kind of has like this dream of achieving fame and success. But what they don't realize about it is like it's a product.
Right,
like you're basically selling a product. It's not you. But then the attention is on you. Like they do know you and they feel like they know you, especially with musicians. I feel like they start to feel like, oh, I heard your song and, you know, it really inspired me. And it's like, well, that song that you thought inspired you for this reason is like not even what it was written about. And
it was a really crappy breakup.
Yeah, it wasn't a crappy breakup. It was really about like the loss of like my vehicle I crashed or, you know, something really random.
Yeah, it was an
like,
excellent grilled
I really
cheese
feel
sandwich.
like I went through the same thing you did. No, not really.
No.
Yeah. But then, like, you know, everyone wants to have like appreciation, but if you're creative and you're appreciated at some point, it's too much, but you don't want to be, I don't know, unappreciated or not be able to at least share your work with people that you love around you. So I don't know if there's a happy medium. I think what I was trying to get at earlier, Rob, was like, to become great in something,
right?
To really put in the, you know, thousands of hours of practice and to get, I mean, real attention, you know, on like a national stage or maybe even worldwide. Do you have to become antisocial, right? Do you have to close yourself off?
I think yes and no. I mean, for me, like after playing in that first band with John and Gina and stuff, I got into a couple other bands, and it was like I always felt like I was behind the eight ball with the musicians I was playing with, because I was playing with some pretty fucking amazing players. And so for me, it was like I had to force myself to become antisocial so I could practice 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. And that's all I did. You know, I can remember, I don't know how many times falling asleep with my bass in my hands and then waking up and going, oh shit, where am I? You know, and just start playing again. And all my friends that I had were like wanting to drag me out into the real world. And I'm like, guys, no, fuck it. I got to do this. You know, I'd love to go hang with you, but I have to do this. So I had to force myself because it'd be too easy to go, yeah, let's go party, hang out, you know, and do all that and not practice, you know, and then I probably wouldn't have had a career had I gone and hung out with them.
See, I totally respect that because, you know, when I was young, there was these like gifted and talented programs and they're like testing me and they're like, wow, you're really smart, Bri. And, you know, I was just like a little math science geek, right?
Right.
And somewhere between like 9, 10, because it was like 8, yeah, I was still into it, maybe 11, but by 12 for sure, I had made this decision to go the other way. I had made this decision, like, you know, instead of being this like super nerd that like lived down the street from these other kids, I was going to go out. I was going to be social. I was going to have friends. I was going to ride bikes. Right. Really, what we were going to do is like in a couple of in like a year or two, we're going to start smoking weed, and then we're going to start drinking and doing that a lot. And it was going to be just the assholes that I hung out with in a basement that weren't really, you know, that special in the end. Like some of them we really keep in touch and I still love them, but like there was this point where the relationship just became about that, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know as a kid, you know, no one explained it to me. Like, if you really want that greatness, you're gonna have to make a decision, you know, of like where you spend your time.
That's exactly it.
I really respect that you did that.
Well, I wanted to do that too, you know. I mean, my dream, you know, after getting out of rehab at 17 was to be a professional musician. So, you know, when you fuck up your life completely before you're even a legal adult to vote, you know, and you wind up in rehab, then you got to start making decisions. And I think that was the strangest part about my career is, you know, playing music in LA throughout the 80s and into the 90s. There was a lot going on.
What were the clubs? What were the cool clubs back then?
The same as today. You know, the Troubadour Whiskey, Roxy, Gazzari's, I don't know if FM station, Garfield's, Red House. There was just on and on and on and on. Yeah. But you know, those are all the normal ones. And then of course, you know, the Rainbow, the Bow. Everyone went to the Bow, and you know, you go there and hang out, and all the rock stars being there getting fucked up, and you know, it was always entertaining there. But yeah.
So what was that like being sober and being around this absolute chaos? Because you'd already been there. You knew where that leads to, but like it also probably helped with the discipline of like really putting your time in with your music because you're not distracted. Yeah, you're not diverted. But like, what was that like?
I almost felt like I was antisocial at that moment because, you know, you're sitting there sober and you got all these guys around you, you know, partying and hitting it and doing their thing, and they're looking at you like, what are you, you know, like some born again freak show? And you're like, nah, dude, you know. And then they start talking to you, and then they start to feel awkward because they're not ready to clean up yet, you know. They're in the middle of their whatever they are, you know, whatever they're doing. So automatically I'm the odd man out with the antisocials.
Yeah.
So I'm hanging around with the antisocials, and I'm like being removed because they didn't know what to do with me. Because if you're a Christian rock star, they knew what to do with you. Yeah. You know, they knew how to talk to you and deal with you, but that wasn't me. I had friends that were, and they were kind of freaked out by me too. And then the guys that were, you know, just doing their thing, it tripped them out because they weren't ready to deal with someone who was sober.
Do you think that affected your music career? Like, as far as, do you feel like, because I, you know, when I was drinking, you know, before I got sober, I was like a complete, like I didn't want to hang out with sober people.
That's
like
exactly
they were
what happened.
boring. Like I didn't want, you know, to include them. Because like, honestly, it was just because they made, like, I could see through them, like, what a complete fuck up I was. Yeah. And it just made me feel uncomfortable to be around him because I felt like a loser. But you know how I would spin it was like, oh, they're boring. I don't want to hang out with that person because they're not having fun. They don't know how to get wild. They're quitters, man. Nobody likes a quitter. That was one of my taglines. Don't be a quitter, man.
Do we all have that T-shirt? Rehab is for quitters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's. Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. Yeah, but then even the funny thing is too is we had a band where 4 of us were sober, and the keyboardist wasn't. And you know, when that band was together, it was phenomenal. I mean, because you know, but still, as we all know, when you sober up, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've cleaned up everything. You know, we all have our character defects or whatever you want to call them.
Are you saying there's still groupies?
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Thank God.
There's a reason to stay in the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get married and you're like, what? No. I gotta say no.
And I'm sure you saw a lot of cheating.
Why are you in a van with 5 dudes rolling across the country for $500 a night at most? Oh, the girls.
Girls, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, there's a lot of cheating going on. I mean, people have their lifestyles, you know, who am I to judge?
Do you think that went along the lines with, or did that go along with like the drug and alcohol use? There was more cheating, or do you feel like it was just all
that was going to happen either way?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it just does. So, you know, it's just part of the thing. So, and it's up to each individual, you know. I mean, I know guys that were touting, you know, one thing and living the other way, you know. So there's a lot of hypocriticism going on, or hypocrites and all that, but that's anywhere in life. That's just not conducive to the music industry, you know. It's just, the music industry just doesn't care. You know, I mean, they just, whatever makes you a better artist, do it.
Yeah.
You know,
we were just talking about that, like how we kind of put up this false like persona that we want people to see, and it kind of like, I don't know, it's just, not everyone does it, but you see it a lot, especially in your just like everyday life. But then once you get to know people and you kind of break that down, it's very different, and you can never make assumptions about people. That's one thing I've learned, especially like in my business, or, you know, like I'll meet someone and I only know them for like 2 hours, and like who I thought they were at the beginning when I first meet them to who I think they are at the end, like 2 hours later is like completely different.
Yeah.
And it's all because we have like these built-in, I don't know, assumptions. But anyways, kind of going off topic, but
well, I was wondering, did you get to tour? Did you get to go?
Never a major tour. I came close 4 times. So we wound up one band. There was 3 bands that I was.
Would you mind saying the names of the bands that you were in? Because you're talking about like, this was a great band, and like,
I don't know if I want to go there, but
no, okay.
You know,
I was just interested.
Maybe. I mean, I got to work with. I'll say this: I got to work with a lot of really famous people, and I had an amazing time and career working with those people, and yeah, I just was very blessed and fortunate to do that, man. You know, and I'm not, I don't know, I don't like wearing my resume. I know a lot of artists do, but I'm not one of them. You know, I don't even at my store, I don't even talk about it a lot, you know.
That's okay. I just was wondering if you might.
Maybe. I don't know.
it's good to stay humble though, you know, and not name drop every 5 seconds. So back when I was touring with blah blah,
well,
you
I
know?
had to name drop
because you probably could sell some
anything.
Guitars. If you started name drop. Oh yeah, you know who plays this? Because when I toured with him, he played this.
Yeah. Then they look at you funny, like, where are your tattoos, man? You know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but
you look a little clean cut to be.
Yeah. I didn't, but you know, now I do. But anyways, I forgot where we were.
That's okay.
Oh, you didn't get to go on tour.
Oh yeah, because we had you know, like 3 different projects. We were ready to get signed. We had everything in order and ready to go on tour and go do this and all that shit. And something would always blow up. You know, like somebody would freak out. Somebody would just fuck something up completely. And then the record companies would just say, all right, we're not dealing with you, you know, and then they move on because it's a vicious business. And then the one project that should have done all that, a couple guys in the band were really nervous about going. One of them was real nervous about going back out on tour because he already done several world tours, and I don't think he was quite ready to hit it again or get back into that. 'Cause I think he was more afraid of that lifestyle capturing him again. And then the other guy, he was just, he's just complete fear. He acted like he wasn't self-isolating, but he was. And he would come off with his, with feathers all poofed, but, when it came down to the nitty-gritty, he'd freaking run and hide, And so it was always difficult. I mean, for a band to get together with 4 or 5 guys and keep their shit together long enough to get a record deal and get out on tour, you got to really respect those guys, man, because, that's an accomplishment very, very few get to actually pull off, And when you get close as many times as I did, you learn to respect those guys that much more.
And back then, wasn't it even far worse for the record companies, like the contracts that they would give you? That was before the artists had, come up and said, like, no, we want our fair share of albums, of concert ticket sales. And so, like,
right.
were you just getting, again, as a product, we're going to sell you, but you're not going to get your share.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm one of many artists that hit a level, and we were sitting there and we were like next in line, and that next in line, they shut the door and it just never opened again, or we got in a different line and got to that place again, and each band was a different line is what it felt like. And it's fine, I'm totally cool with it now. At the time I get pissed off and whatever, but now it's like I just figured it's the way it was supposed to go down.
And maybe if you would have gotten there, you would have realized that that's not where you wanted to be. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise,
it could
too.
Be, yeah.
Or that you just actually tried multiple times,
I love that.
You got to see how far you could go. And I'm sad you couldn't go further, but you put in the effort.
Yeah, and the nice thing is I have no regrets now. Looking back on all of that, I mean, I am so blessed to have the opportunities I got, I worked with some freaking amazing people that I still learn from. That's the coolest thing. I think, like if I do talk about, I played bass with this guy for a couple weeks in the studio, and I think, and it triggers that thought of, shit, I remember when I was sitting there and we were going back and forth over stuff, and he was teaching me all this shit. And at the time, you don't realize how much you're being taught.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you reflect, every time I reflect back on it, I go, oh, shit, I remember he said this. And then I'm like over there practicing that now.
Just rubbing a little of their magic off on you.
Yeah. And I was fortunate to have a ton of guys sprinkle their magic off on me, man.
Yeah.
And what happened, like, that when you were really like, okay, I need to pull away from this?
Well, mentally, I never pulled away. Just physically. Mentally, my mind has never left the game, and, when we moved up here to Idaho, I joined a band up here. We were doing it. We were close. That band, if they would have grown up a little bit quicker as a band, I think we could have pulled off some good shit. But it was like typical band thing, you go out on the road for a week and a half, 10 days, and find out everyone's true meaning in life. We were gone for 2 weeks, and we came back, and the keyboardist quit, the drummer was ready to quit, this guy broke up with his girlfriend, and you're just like going, oh man, that was 2 weeks. How you guys gonna survive 2 years, man? Because that's what happens when you get signed. You're out on the road for a long freaking time, or at least
because once you're under that contract, you can't let those things get in the way.
Yeah, nothing gets in your way.
So then you're just like have all this turmoil going on within the band, but you have to work through it.
Yeah.
And keep going. Yeah.
And at some point you say, I need to find a different career, right?
Well, yeah, but I never wanted to. That was the difference. That was my pure love in life, and that's why I'm, all these years later, getting the music store, a year and a half ago or so, and being able to reinvent myself this way, getting back into the music scene here in Idaho and doing all that. It's interesting to meet the amount of incredible musicians there are here in town, guys that have gone out there and been back and done tours and now they live here, and it's interesting to hear all the similarities, and everything, and get to know a lot of these guys that are just great guys and gals in town.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you're still following your passion, but just in a different avenue. You're still connected to music in such a big way, but just not chasing that.
Yeah, not chasing the stardom.
Stardom.
Do you want to put in a plug for the music store?
12th Fret Music, that music store.
What address?
Yeah, sure. What do you want me to say about it?
Oh, the address down in Boise, what you offer?
Oh, we're 2164 South Broadway Avenue in Boise. Been at that location now 4 years. It used to be Doyle's Broadway Music. Doyle and Kathy decided to retire a couple years ago. I bought the store from them, changed the name to 12th Fret Music. So and we've upgraded a lot of the equipment, all the guitars and everything else that we carry, all the brands and all that stuff.
Do you teach lessons?
I personally don't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But we do have guys that come in and do that for us. I just don't have time.
I didn't know, as part of seeing, not just the similarities of other people that have done the worldwide tour gig here, but, other kids coming in for their first guitar, their first real guitar.
Yeah.
And just having that renewed passion because you get to see it in somebody else.
It's exciting to see that. Yeah. And even the kids that are out there just starting their careers, they're starting to do live gigs and they're learning how to do a show, and they come in and they're like, dude, what do I need? And you feel like dad or something, or grandpa to these kids,
Almost like a mentor in a way, right?
Yeah.
Here's the
That's a better
checklist.
word. Mentor is a much better word than grandpa or dad.
I'm sure they kind of look at it I'm sure that it kind of gives you joy too, to kind of, I don't know, just be able to help them start their journey with the thing they love the most.
Yeah, and that's what's exciting for us. This one set of kids came in, and I helped them get, the right bass amp for their bass player, and then helping the guitarist out with some stuff. And, a few months later, they showed up with their album. They did this little 5-song demo, and it's freaking brilliant. You're like a bunch of 18-year-old kids running around, dude, look what we did. They're all proud and shit, and they're showing me their album, and I'm playing it on in the store for them. And, it's just awesome. That part of it now is very, very rewarding, because you're going, yeah, man, you get to see them light up and go for it,
right?
Which is,
it's like giving back to the community in a way.
Yeah,
and nurturing more of that, just because I want to see the music, I want to see it keep growing here and just continue.
I think it's going to. I mean, it's inevitable now, since more people, more musicians,
Well, there's that local practice space called Hive.
The Hive, yeah.
Yeah, and we would be there every Sunday, and we could hear this practice space, the next one over, and just kids are rocking out and jamming, and they're doing so good. And it turns out the guitarist is a son of a friend of mine, and I was just super happy to see, because you were talking about the angsty kids earlier, and I remember the first time I was 14, and we went to the local Methodist church, and there's a couple of punk bands, just kids are just and it was so much fun. It's so much fun that I didn't have that outlet as a kid, and that's when I turned to all these other ways to kind of repress my emotions instead of push them out there. But what a wonderful way to be creative and get that out. I mean, just the straight hormone rage, right?
Oh yeah, I loved that type of music when I was younger. It's I was just so angry and sad, and I felt like a loner. I felt like I didn't fit in with anyone, and that music just spoke to me big time.
The girl didn't talk to me, and I need a song that it's going to make me cry 20 times on repeat.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh gosh.
I think
there's something that feels kind of
emo.
And it feels really good. So you're I'm gonna do that again. Oh, that felt so good. I'm gonna do it again.
Just torture.
Just reliving the pain over and over and over again.
Yeah. So
I don't know, Rob. Anything else you want to talk about right now? What's going on in your life? What's on your mind?
What's going on in my life?
Yeah, what's going on in your life?
That I want to share about on a blog.
Oh, that's good. We're not a blog. We're a podcast. Quite different.
Oh, sorry.
My mom always says that too. When are you going to put up your new blog?
No, blogging.
I feel like
Where's your blog at?
I feel like that confusion comes in a lot.
Sarah, when are you going to have children?
Oh, ooh, let's not go there.
Oh.
Let's not go there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but sorry.
No, that's okay. I've always been like really cool. Like I love the idea of adoption, but growing a baby inside of me, oh man.
Yeah,
My mom doesn't even ask those questions. She like knows. She's like, you're not married. No one loves you. Like, you're never gonna have kids. You know, just like,
Yeah.
it's all negative. Like, there's no like, hey, when's that gonna happen?
Yeah. Well, I'm too old now. Like I'm at the point where it's like,
yeah.
it's my eggs are rotten. Did you always know you wanted kids, Rob?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I
How
want
is that like with, living the lifestyle you did and then having children?
Well, let me see.
They can't do more than he did.
What was that? I missed that.
Oh, like, screwing up, getting drunk, getting drugs as a kid, like crazy teenager,
Me, yeah.
They can't really surpass dad on that one. Like, try it.
No, I mean, the thing was with the kids is, let me see, how old's Panda? Panda's 28. Yeah, I was 27 or so when I had my first. So I think I had enough under my belt as a career, 10 years in already at that point, 9-10 years in, to where, I saw other people with kids, around me, other musicians that were doing it. So I just kind of thought, okay, if they can do it, I can do it, you know, and just emulate it, yeah, and then when we moved to Idaho, we had a whole bunch. So we had 3 more.
Yeah.
We wound up with 4, man,
So were there any challenges? Well, I'm sure there's a lot of challenges with having kids, but like with that and your specific, being in music, because that takes a lot of your love and attention. Like I feel like a lot of musicians, like that's their first love. And then if you throw kids in the mix, how was that as far as like being able to nurture all of that at the same time and still give your music enough attention to keep growing and excelling?
Well, I guess you just love the ones you're with at that moment.
That's good. That's well put.
You know what I mean? It's like when I was with my bass and playing music, that's where my love went into, and then when I was home, it was with the wife and my kids the best I could. And when I had to work and do all that other normal shit, I tried to be passionate about work, but I never could be. It was either music or my family, and those are the only 2 things I ever gave a shit about. Everything else to me was just irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because sobriety first, and then everything else falls into place, I guess.
That's true.
So yeah.
Why did you move to Idaho?
Carolyn, her sister and brother lived up here at the time, and she had come up to visit a couple times, fell in love with the place. And we were both had been talking about moving out of LA because of the freaking not the rat race so much, but just it was just nuts down there,
And raising a family there can be probably really challenging.
Yeah, it could be. And so I always felt like part of me pushed out, it's like, why would you leave? Why wouldn't you just stay and make it happen, But when we came up here, it just felt like the right thing to do, it just felt right. And so I just followed that gut feeling and turned out to be correct, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what would have happened had we stayed, but that could be anything.
I feel like the people up here are more real. You're not like trying to just put on that facade.
Yeah,
and,
less
and
of that
sell
here.
your brand all the time.
Yeah. Not as busy. Very slow here compared to there. So
yeah. So you have that time to kind of build connection with people more, and there you're so busy trying to like drive from place to place to get to the place on time, and then being stuck in traffic all day, and then going from work, and then I feel like it's kind of like New York. Like I don't know anybody that lives in New York and doesn't have like 16 hours of their day spent commuting and working.
Yeah.
Like, it does not sound fun to me.
No, it's
like
not.
their whole day is like, getting to work, or like, it just is like this major hustle. Mm-hmm. And that to me just sounds so lonely and depressing. And I've heard that, like, people who live in big cities, they say that they feel more lonely, even though they're around so many people. They feel more lonely than ever.
Oh, that makes sense.
I could see that, because
Yeah,
it
I
is.
can
We
see
all,
that.
and then the more people you're around, the more it's like you build up walls, because you're,
Oh, yeah.
there's so many people. You can't trust anyone. There's no sense of community. I mean, depending on where you live, like, you might have like these small pockets, or just, small pockets of like your friends and stuff, but everyone else is just the masses.
It's the same way in Boston. I think I told you before.
We discussed that. Mhm.
It was if somebody introduced you to a person, you were going to know that person for the rest of your life.
Right.
But you could not talk to anybody else. Like, you couldn't say hi to the person next to you in line at Starbucks. You'd ruin their day. How dare you?
See, that's the thing I do love about Boise is, you can go downtown anytime and you be hanging out, and whoever sits down next to you, you just start talking, and, it's just like nobody's offended by that,
Yeah, we actually basically said that, like, I think on the last
Oh, you know what
podcast.
happened
Yeah.
since the last podcast? I was downtown with some friends, and it was like 3 a.m, and we saw this fire truck pull up, and we're like, what's going on?
3 a.m?
Yeah. And they put out the struts, and we start walking, and we realize there's a guy on the ledge over where Wild Root and Thomas Hammer are. Just on the first floor list to the outside the second windows, right? The first ledge there.
Right.
And so he's like 10, 12 feet up. And then like one of his friends is down on the ground and starts telling us the story. They had a bag, and his friend tried to throw it down to him from a window that's even higher, another floor higher, and it got caught on the ledge. So, and we see Kid up there, and he's not like drunk, he's not stoned. He's just sitting there like he's literally looking at us, because our friend's sitting there just shaking his head like, I made a bad call, So he Spider-Man'd out of the third floor window to get the bag that was stuck on the ledge outside the second floor window, and then couldn't get down. And I'm there like, you could do it, man. If you just swung your left leg here and your right leg there, you could do it. But
Put your left foot in. Take
Yeah.
and like
Hokey pokey it, dude.
we're kind of feeling sorry for the dude, but like, everyone else is like got their iPhones out, and they're just taking video of him, and the fireman finally goes up the ladder, and it's like, okay, we're gonna scoot
that
you
Did he
down.
get his bag?
guy.
Oh no, the friend had it. So like,
okay.
'cause once he finally got to the ledge, he tossed it. So
But then he just couldn't get
it was
off the
a
ledge.
Pokemon bag too.
Shit.
Oh, God.
It was like
That's
a
even
large Pikachu with straps on it. Yeah, and
And everybody's gonna post that on Instagram and Facebook. The poor
Of course,
guy.
yeah.
I'm sure it
It's
was
ruined.
on the local news.
Ruined.
Like, you can't get away with shit anymore. I've talked about this. Like, you can't get away with shit that's embarrassing and be like, it's just a story. Oh, that's not true. Oh no, we have like video footage of your photos.
Well, the
Yeah.
thing, he asked for help. I would have been self-reliant in that moment and been like, I can do this. I don't care if I'm going to break a leg. There's no
Yeah.
way I'm getting the
I do not wanna
firemen
look like
involved,
this.
having cops roll up.
Yeah, but someone could have called thinking he was going to jump.
Yeah.
That would have been a really like sad suicide on the second floor.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I think I attempted something like that in
I was gonna
college.
say, I feel like you have a story like that, Brian.
Yeah. It involves being naked in November and like being very early in the evening. And so
Some minor shrinkage then.
oh yeah.
Thank God cell phones didn't exist back
Oh
then.
god.
Can you
God, no kidding.
imagine? You'd still have that photo floating around.
Yeah, it wouldn't have even counted as X-rated. It would have. It was so much shrinkage. It would have been like, what's that
So, like,
pixelated
guy or what is that? Is
Got a turtle.
that a fuzzy bear?
dot? Yeah. But even worse was like going into class on Monday and people are like, "You're alive? I can't believe you're here."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a
Poor
good
thing.
story. Well, on that note,
On that note, is that it? Is that where we're gonna end it?
Is that an
I
A
feel like
or is
where
that
do
a G?
I feel like where do we go from there? Where do we go from there?
we go all kinds of
Besides being
places.
naked. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
This
Do
can get
you
ugly
guys
quick.
have any embarrassing stories? We can
Oh my God, I don't know.
I'll let Sarah go first.
Okay, I have a lot of embarrassing stories. I think the most humiliating story was like, so my friends threw this giant birthday party for me. I think it was my 32nd or 33rd birthday, and they did an 80s prom theme. So I went and got like the most amazing vintage prom dress. We had like this huge party. It went from like 10 a.m. until like bar close. I don't really remember how I got home, but I came to in the hallway of my apartment building, and I'm pretty sure I'd peed myself. Yeah, I'm because that was a pretty common thing at that point. So I'm pretty sure I peed myself. And then this girl, the neighbor, had put out milk and cookies because this was February. So it was like kind of like I was like this sad female prostitute version of Santa Claus in an 80s prom dress with crimped hair. And I woke up and I'm like, oh God, who else saw me? Who was like walking through the hallway and had to kind of like, move around my sad body that's just laying there that had peed herself in the hallway. And the saddest part is I was like 2 feet away from my apartment door. Like if I would have just made it 2 more feet, I could have went inside. But that's just one of many. And a lot of them I don't remember. Because, like, I was a blackout drinker. So, like, there is just memories that I have completely...
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay with them being gone forever.
Yeah.
But that's probably my most embarrassing story.
Oh, fun. You gonna say something to the blog?
No.
We're going to blog about it.
I'm to the blog. No.
Blog life.
Yeah. Yeah, that was... gosh. That still I would say was probably one of the best birthdays I ever had.
Yes.
I mean, moral of the story is I had a really good birthday.
Yeah.
But the ending was kind of not so great.
Yeah.
Especially the morning after. I don't miss that. And then the waves of emotion that come back. The guilt, the shame, the like, I hate my life.
Yeah.
I just want to die. I don't miss that.
You see, I have some of those stories, the same stories where it's like you're just 2 feet away from the bathroom, but at least you were wearing clothes. Like, yeah, like all those stories for sure. Just terrible, terrible. The people that I lived with, bless their hearts,
Yeah.
having to go through with that.
Yeah. And I was lucky where a lot of my friends were functioning alcoholics. So I looked bad, but never that bad.
Uh-huh.
Like I was always just kind of like, yeah, she took it a little further than everyone else, but we were all pretty fucked up in the end. So
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to hang out with the people that are like you, like
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's easy
surround
not to
yourself
see it
with
when everyone else.
Are you saying you were the lower companion?
I don't know.
Lower.
Because how we always seek out lower companions. So we.
I was. Yeah, I was the lower
You know what I mean?
companion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Especially amongst my female friends. The guys were just kind of, no, everybody. I was just kind of like,
Yeah, that's how I was. I was the one that pushed it. I mean, they were party animals, but I would party animal and then jump off the cliff.
yeah,
Take it that much further.
yeah.
It'd be like, okay, so we smoked all the weed we can, we drank all we can. Now we need cocaine and speed so we can stay awake and do more. And
Yeah.
they'd be like, dude, what's wrong with you? I'm like, it's only day 2, guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
Extreme.
so they were the ones that
Pushing it.
Yeah, they wanted to.
I
try to
didn't like
keep
the.
this shit.
I
never could.
I had a mission with the booze, and then the coke would counteract that.
Yeah.
I was like, A, I don't want to spend all that money. B, it's interacting with what I want my cheap booze to do for me. So I was like, no, I just turn off.
It just depends on how long you want to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's all it was. Cocaine was just was your bonus material.
It's a B-side bonus track.
Yeah, it was the
It
bonus.
was a reboot.
track.
It was a reboot.
Yeah. It was like reboot. Let's
Okay,
go.
let's keep going. Yeah. And then you just get to the like, so you stopped using and drinking at a really early age. I was like, I was 37, and towards the end like before I decided to just get sober and just do away with that lifestyle, I started envisioning myself being the drunk aunt.
Oh, God.
So I had a friend who had like the drunk aunt, and she came to the party and she was hitting on all the young guys and lighting the cigarette at the wrong end. And just embarrassing. And I'm like, I don't really, like, it's not long before I get there. And I saw where, like, that was kind of like my, like, eye-opening experience where I'm like, this is where I'll end up.
Yeah.
Like, it was getting to be a little sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like, I'm really glad I got sober when I did.
Sad.
But I wish it would have been earlier. You know, like, I always think about that. I'm like, God, you know, if I would have, but...
Sad. My last drunk, I was in a retirement home drinking with an 80-year-old woman who lived across from my grandmother. Okay, talk about that.
Get laid?
No.
You're just like someone to drink with.
Just wanted someone to drink with.
It was a terrible, terrible scene, and then I left and I got chased by like seven state cops, and then I ditched the car and tried to make for Canada, but like only got so far as Maine.
Yeah.
That was my last drunk.
It takes what it takes.
Yeah.
Thank God.
No, so we started at like 6 p.m. and I drank that woman out of whiskey, scotch, wine, cooking wine, which I guess is really terrible. I guess is the only time I ever drank it.
That's your cocaine.
They love sherry. Older people love sherry.
Yeah, and so, but I came to...
Sherry is cocaine.
I came
Oh, it
to...
is? Look at that, too.
At 3 a.m. and her and I, Elsie, God bless her, she's no longer around. Elsie and I were crying about how no one in the world loved us.
Oh.
That's so from like 6 p.m.
It's like
to
out of a
3
movie.
Yeah,
That's what I'm picturing.
That's so perfect.
And that's when my grandmother came in, and it's just, oh God.
What a great way to go out, though.
Oh,
like,
terrible.
You know, scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and
The curtain drop, you know, like.
And I remembered
done.
how to my town was so small; it went from 5,000 people to 6,000 people as I grew up. But there was one car chase that happened when I was like 11 or 12, and somehow I remembered exactly what that guy had done. Then I was trashed, you know, at 22, and did the exact same maneuver through the center of town and got away. And it was ridiculous because I had already lost 2 cops, and then there was 5 more waiting for me. So yeah.
That would have been a time where Coke would have come in handy.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was already Mario Andretti in my mom's 1993 Ford Taurus station wagon. Okay. Like somehow that all happened in a station wagon.
Of course it
Yeah,
did.
props to Ford for making that engine, okay?
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. Oh, nobody's gonna chime in. You're just gonna let it sit there.
That's
You're just
enough.
yeah.
Okay, I do have one question. Was there the fake wood paneling on the station wagon? Because those were the best.
No.
We grew up with one of those.
LTD, Ford
Yeah.
LTD with the fake one.
Yep.
We had one.
My brother and his friends
And
flipped
did
it.
you have the seats in the back, the very back that
Oh yeah.
folded up?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you fight
Yeah.
to see who could sit in the very back.
Oh yeah, but we would just roll around in the
Yeah,
back
yeah.
seat. Like this was the '80s. Like seatbelts were optional.
Yeah,
And the kids would
totally.
just like roll around. My dad would take a corner, and he's, you know, we'd just be flopping from one end of the station wagon to the other.
And then
no
they'd
big deal.
hard break you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you'd be like,
shut
"Boom."
up. And then you just go flying into the front. Just being tossed around.
I got a completely unrelated question since
Okay.
you're not going to share any of your fun stories and you're just going to laugh at mine. So something else that's been on my mind a lot lately is like I've grown up in this generation, it's really weird, of playing outside, and I had like wooden block toys as a kid. Right? To now we're in this like, really digitally connected world, and I got to tell you, I love how informed younger kids are, like 10, 15 years younger than me. But it's like, it's really strange because it's like, how did you do that? You grew up with all this information, all this interconnectedness, and like, you know, there's this term that gets tossed around like being woke, but like, you know, what do you feel like being an older adult, like in this generation where it's
Good
like,
choice of words.
Said lately, friend.
sorry.
Well, no. I mean, I get it. Good and bad with everything. I think about, you know, because growing up in the 70s and you know, the early part of the 80s, you know, it's my teen years and stuff. I can remember adults saying the exact same thing about us. You know,
yeah.
and it's like, you know, all these kids today, you know, they got a TV in the house, you know, or, you know, it wasn't as much and it wasn't like as available, you know, but it was still there. I remember the first time a friend of ours, a doctor friend, he had cable TV in his house. And we go over there, man, and it was a freaking rectangular box about 9 inches by 6 inches, and it had buttons on it, and you push the button to get to each channel, kind of like the old remotes, you know, and it was Z cable, I think. And it was like, fuck me, man, you got cable? And as a kid, I'd be over there like doink, 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 and I was channel surfing then by pushing buttons instead of just opening up my phone and doing it, you know. So I think it's all relevant, you know. I think people just need to be out and be with people. I think the thing that annoys me the most today is people text instead of talk, you know, and I wish people would talk more like this, you know. I would love to see groups of kids just sitting around shooting the shit, you know, and talking and interacting and feeling each other, because, you know, it's one thing to talk on a text message, but it's another thing to see the emotion and feel it and see all the expressions and everything. And I think that's what we're missing out on.
Yeah.
Is that human connection. You still connect text wise and, you know, and through podcasts and all that.
Yeah.
You know, but when you get to see everyone's face and feel them, you know, it's a whole different ball game, man.
Yeah.
And I think if we lose that, then we're in trouble as a human race, you know, because as humans, we have to bond. It's part of our nature to bond, man, you know, and, you know, but yeah, I think every generation has that.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I think it's just different things to complain about.
But
you know?
things are so beyond like crazy with this next year, you know, like even the younger generation coming in, like it's like it happened so quick.
Yeah.
The technology, and it's like leaps and bounds, just like catapults us into this like almost virtual reality in a way.
Yeah. And I think, and my fear is if that happens with music, then we're screwed as far as music goes. You know?
Well, a lot of younger musicians, it's like, you know, I'm noticing like, I started following or I started finding music on YouTube. Like a lot of them kind of teach themselves through YouTube. Like I was thinking about when I was younger and I decided I wanted to become a makeup artist, and I bought books. Like I bought Kevin Aquan's books on like doing faces and like, you know, his makeup books, and I just study them.
Yeah.
And now YouTube, it's like you have so many videos of like tutorials, but like visual tutorials. And like, I feel like it's really like, there's so much information out there, and
there's a gap in education. Okay. Like really, we should be putting a lot more money into like just teachers, not even, I've known some administrators that weren't ever teachers in school systems, but like just teachers and the ability to educate people.
Right.
And this is like one of those great ways, like you want to, you know, fix something on your car, you can watch a video, you can pause it, you can do whatever it is. Yeah, if you've got the gumption, you can do just about anything. And so no matter what, like there's these YouTube, and so it's like filling in this gap of education, you know, and people are like, well, I didn't ever use that stuff I learned in high school. This is practical knowledge. So YouTube, while it is an entertainment side, also has I think I'm repeating myself here, but filling the gap of education for human life.
Yeah.
You know, what you might go through that isn't being covered by, let's say, what the government shows us through our school systems, or what they could do with a more well-funded education system.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
I totally agree on that for sure.
That's funny. That's like in my ear.
Sorry about
that's
that.
Fine.
That's okay. Should we just wrap it up then, or?
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's get Rob to sing our jingle with us.
Do we have a jingle?
I don't know. I'm not a singer,
kidding.
man.
Just kidding. I love that expression. I love that expression.
Which one?
The expression on your face.
Oh.
When he said, let's get Rob to sing the jingle. Even I was like, what? Sarah did not brief me on this.
No. Are the lyrics, or what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Are we improvising?
There is a dance section for the video.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't play an instrument, you have to dance.
Thank God I can play an instrument. Because I can't
Where is
dance.
it? Where is it? It's not here.
Yeah.
No.
We were thinking about just starting and ending with us beatboxing, but I don't know about that.
We could get better at beatboxing first.
Yeah, we have to kind of sharpen our skills because I have no skills, so we'll work on that. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in today,
No,
Rob.
thank you so much
and
for
sharing
having
a
me,
little bit
guys.
of your
Yes,
story
thanks,
with
Rob.
us.
Appreciate it.
And it's really cool to just kind of see where people's paths are taking them, and I love what you're doing here in Boise.
Thank
and
you.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bringing music to the community and helping it spread and helping people find their passion. It's a beautiful thing, and there needs to be more people like you. And I'm really grateful that you came in today. And
Thank you, guys.
TheOuterFringe was recorded at Triii-Point Studios. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved.